and own demise. A little bit like there's that psychological aspect of when senior people are asked to train junior people so that the company can then get rid of senior people because junior people are cheaper. Is that what's going to happen? It's an interesting question, isn't it? I know everyone is excited about using chatbots to make your life today easier, or do something quickly and perhaps pretend that it took you a whole day to do it, whereas you just got ChatGPT to do your job for you. Now, I want to ask you something. So imagine you are working with an AI tool and asking it to help you to do your job. Perhaps you ask a chatbot to produce a list of business requirements for a certain scope, or propose what are the steps in a typical business process for a certain standard process. Perhaps you're looking to do some research or generate a list of requirement stakeholders that you need to approach, or you're using a chatbot to plan requirements analysis and plan specific tasks. So you asking questions, right? There is lots and lots of downloads already online and courses and videos and materials about AI prompts for business analysts. These are the best prompts. This is how you prompt a chatbot to help you. And this is how you set it up. You say, okay, you are a business analyst with experience in such and such industry. You're producing documents for business stakeholders. They should be at this and this level of understanding with this many technical details versus business details. So you provide various guidelines and boundaries for the chatbot model to give you the appropriate response. And of course, we all know that the quality of response depends on your prompt, depends on how you ask, how you frame. And often you have to ask clarifying questions or ask the chatbot to tweak and change responses as you get them so that you can get closer and closer to what you wanted. So you've done all that and you got a response from AI, for example, producing a list of business use cases that can help you plan your business analysis. Now, the question is, who is assessing the response? So say you got that list. Are you going to actually read through that and assess and say, oh, that's not exactly what I wanted. Let me ask it differently. Let me tweak this. Oh, I forgot to mention this in my prompt. I should have mentioned it, and that will actually get me a different output. So you have to go through all of these iterations of questioning and answering, and basically you're changing your inputs to get the right outputs or desired outputs from that black box, right? Because chatbot is going to be like a black box. It was trained using billions of parameters. Of course, you cannot, no human being can kind of understand all of it. So you're playing with that black box, you're trying, you're putting that mental effort into changing your prompts and twisting your prompts, and now you have to keep your own database of your favorite prompts and how did you ask, and perhaps refer to those prompts later and later. On the other hand, you have to assess the outputs that you receive from the model and think, is it satisfactory? Does it sound like what I wanted? Does it look complete, or is something obvious missing? And why is it missing? Is it because I forgot to mention something in my prompt? Maybe something from that list proposed by the chatbot is not really applicable to our company, because again, chatbots work on the most probable responses. They analyze all the training data that went in to give you the most likely, the most typical, basically the average type of response. But your company may be different. Your project may be different. You may know something else that constrains what you need, or perhaps changes the scope of what you're expecting to receive. So you need to process the results and take what you need, discard what you don't need, or change and continue iteratively to get that output out of that AI chatbot. Now, that sounds like working with a really good secretary or a really good junior analyst. or a really good assistant that's training to become a business analyst, because while they are doing the somewhat mechanical work of organizing and generating what you need, you are overseeing that work, right? You are directing it. You're giving it the right push. You're thinking of what questions to ask and in what way to ask the questions. Now, that is sometimes similar to working with perhaps like a junior person who just started in their career. You explain the task to them. Sometimes they don't get it absolutely, the way you want it, or perhaps they do it the way they were trained in college and university, but that's not what was expected. So then you think as their mentor and coach, you think, I probably have to explain it somewhat differently, or let me give them more information, or let me demonstrate how to do it and set that example. So basically, you are acting as mentor and coach and a senior person to provide the right way of prompting and boundaries to get the right answer from your counterpart, which again could be a junior analyst, could be your assistant, could be your AI assistant. So with all that, you act as a senior person in the room, hopefully, right? You are the ultimate judge of the quality of whether that was acceptable, whether it was reasonable. And in cases where you're using AI to do some research online, you also need to validate the responses and make sure that it didn't hallucinate anything because there was no answer, or the answer wasn't in a training model. All right. So what I want to extract out of this description is that you have to do the thinking in the room, right? Yes, AI model is generating likely responses based on its probabilistic machine learning models behind that facade that you are interacting with. But you have to assess it. You have to think whether it's applicable. You are ultimately still responsible for the quality of analysis. You have to decide how to choose those outputs for your next steps in business analysis, how to use them to work on the next set of user stories, how to use them to plan your business analysis, how does it impact how you wanted to plan the next discovery or requirements workshop. So you have to process that pre-processed information, you process it further, so you're doing higher level thinking. So you are still responsible for thinking. You are even more responsible for thinking than before. And a couple of years ago, I wrote an article about what is actually a BA mindset in a nutshell, because I tried to describe these 12 principles, but I was being asked, well, what if you had to describe it in one sentence? And in one sentence, to me, business analysis mindset is taking responsibility for thinking, okay? You don't just ask your stakeholders for what they want and write it down. And likewise, you don't just prompt something into an AI algorithm and just be happy that you got an output. You still have to think and evaluate and discriminate and compare information and analyze information and figure out what is suitable or not suitable, what is complete or not complete, what is contradictory or aligned and consistent. You have to do that higher level thinking as a business analyst even more than before. So where does it lead us? Another article I read recently, and in fact it was quite a thread of multiple articles, talking about how AI technology is already displacing many workers, like knowledge workers. However, it's interesting that the emphasis is on displacement of junior entry-level workers. Okay, so that was said about lawyers, the junior lawyers who traditionally did mostly research in law databases and looking for similar cases and collecting information. That type of activity can be easily replaced by AI. The same goes for many entry-level jobs where that person maybe doesn't have a lot of responsibility. They're doing preparation, they're doing drafting of documents, they're collecting data, they're doing some basic analysis of that data. Those types of tasks actually can be much more easily replaced by AI than the higher level evaluating tasks, more planning what activities to do, determining what to do with the results of that research. What does that tell me? Setting the scope of further research, like deciding what is it that we need to research to help us to solve the problem or finish this job. So while AI is replacing more and more entry-level jobs, what becomes even more valuable is senior level capabilities or senior level competency, knowing which questions to ask, knowing what prompts to formulate, knowing how evaluate the response from that research, whether it was delivered to you by a junior worker that just came to start their job from a university, or you got it from an AI algorithm. Deciding what to do with the results, determining the right interactions with the right stakeholders to discuss what you learned and how it can be used, and whether it's sufficient to make some important business decisions. So a lot of it is senior level thinking that requires experience, that requires more judgment, that requires high level of analysis, that multiplied by your expertise or experience working in certain industry or in certain type of company or with certain groups of people. So bottom line is, the more senior you are, probably the more you do things that AI cannot do. Definitely not yet, okay? Nobody knows where the future lies, of course. But if I were to give you an advice about how to stay relevant, it is to become senior, act like a senior business analyst, tackle those senior level competencies as soon as possible, get on with it. You need to learn to do more of those things that AI cannot do, right? In politically correct and ethical and diplomatic interactions with stakeholders, with other human beings, right? Understanding those hidden agendas. And one example of that is, think about it, when AI analyzes information based on your prompts, it can only analyze information you provided to them. In real interactions with people, especially with stakeholders that may have some political motivations, sometimes you can detect things are not being said, things that are being omitted, or maybe hidden questions, hidden agendas. That is not necessarily something that an AI algorithm can guess. They can only make assumptions based on what is typically happening in such and such scenarios. So you will have to look for.
Imagine being able to build an app with your name on it, just by thinking about it. Meet Base 44, a complete AI creation platform. Describe what you want, and watch it take shape. You can plan, customize, and expand in any direction. From tools built for one, to platforms ready for many. From passion projects to enterprise-grade systems. Everything is built in and ready to launch. It's a new world of creation, where you can go as far as your imagination takes you. Can you imagine it? Let's make your dream a reality, right now.
Some hidden undercurrents in your company that may actually be impacting the project or initiative or the relationships. As a senior business analyst, you have to learn how to combine different fields of expertise together. You need to learn about data and about process improvements and about user experience and understand when to call on which of these knowledge areas to help with the next steps. You need to work with architects, you need to work with technical people, you need to look at the big picture. You need to create meaningful and useful diagrams and models that help understand and then link one model with another and understand when to use different methods of communicating with stakeholders, when to use visuals versus when to do data analysis, when you need to do a demo perhaps, or do a group review, when you need to do proof of concept. So there is a lot of things that the more senior you are, the more sophisticated and experience based your value is, right? And it's going to be harder and harder to replace it with just chatbot features, because this is literally large language models that are very good at processing large amounts of text and providing you with the most likely response to text-based prompts. But what we do, for example, with business projects for solving business problems is much bigger than that, okay? And even implementation of certain AI recommendations or implementation of decisions that have been based on, say, a sophisticated machine learning algorithm, the implementation of it is still a human task. Change management, adoption, figuring out how responsibilities of people need to change, how to encourage them to use analytics in the right way, and so on. A lot of this is so dependent on your human abilities. So what I want to finish with today is, yes, definitely learn about AI and its capabilities. Don't forget that AI is based on machine learning. So learn about machine learning and what it actually means, how it uses data, how data needs to be prepared for machine learning algorithm, for using by AI tools, right? Because you still have to train the models on the data that is specific to your problem, your company. Learn about all of that, but don't forget to continually practice your senior competencies, those that are not easily replaceable by AI, those where we humans outperform AI. And don't forget that you are responsible for thinking. You have to do high-level thinking. You have to analyze inputs provided to you by these models, because that's your job, right? And to finish off today, I wanted to share with you one more perspective on this. All that hard work of generating prompts for AI and twisting it this way and tweaking it that way and building up your library of prompts and then looking at answers and thinking of what may be missing and how to evaluate it. Sometimes it may be actually faster to do the whole thing yourself than go through all that trouble. So you also have to evaluate when is it more efficient to use AI tools versus just going ahead with your own thinking. And don't forget that it helps you practice thinking, and don't forget how to think critically. Don't forget how to think on your own. And I remember this old quote from a movie where this person who has all his life, he was fixing horse wagons. He was an expert in it. And he has to fix this another one. And the owner asks, well, how long will it take you to fix it? He says, yeah, about a day. Says, oh, a day? What if I gave you a helper? And then he says, with a helper, it will probably take me at least 3 days to do it. So think about it. Sometimes using the helper or trying to offload some of the work on the helper and then telling them exactly what to do, checking their work and revising it and asking them to reduce certain things. Sometimes that takes longer than just doing it. Now, if you are doing it to mentor a junior business analyst, then it's a worthwhile investment, because eventually your junior business analyst will grow into a more experienced one. Whether you will apply the same psychology to working with AI tools, that really needs to be judged based on the efficiency of the responses and how much does it cost you, by the way, to run those, because running AI tools, of course, is not free, it's not cheap, it requires energy, water, and so on. So all of these considerations have to come into that big picture. But whatever they are, remember, you're still responsible for thinking. You want to retain the capability of critical thinking and not lose it because of too much reliance on tools doing the rating for you and doing data collection for you. You need to make sure that you understand what they respond with, you can evaluate it, you can determine what's missing, and you decide how to use the results. So that's a little bit of take on AI and business analysis. If you're interested in more, my new book, Foundations of Business Analytics, just came out, and it came out as a textbook. I'll provide the link below. I have a course on data management for business analysts and professionals that I will also share with you in links. And until next video, take care.
Okay. So what all takeaways did you get from that? What nuggets did different people hear?
My first observation, this is Denise.
Yep.
I listened to that webinar when it was done originally, but so my first
Oh, wow.
observation was how do you become a senior BA if you don't do any of the work as a junior BA? And her comments about junior BA jobs being replaced by AI, well, you can't replace everything. I think that it's a part of the job overall, and it's not about replacing people, it's replacing those who aren't using the tools.
I would
Denise,
say,
that was
yeah,
almost exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah, because you can't be a senior if you don't be a junior first. You got to learn.
that's true.
It's
You're
not by
right.
osmosis, right? Yeah.
It points to some real problems in the job world at this
Yes.
point, because nobody wants to be the one that's paying for people to learn how to do their jobs.
Yeah.
Well, that means we're going to have the next generation of organizations that don't have anybody who can do their jobs when all of the senior BAs retire.
That's correct. That is absolutely correct. And we're seeing it all over the place, not only in our jobs, but in our schools as well. We're not teaching the children how to think for themselves. We got
Yep.
too many tools doing it for them and not teaching them.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And I love AI. I use AI
I
all
do
the
too.
time.
I love it. But you got to know you got to know what you're doing to use it. So I disagree with that it's going to replace all the jobs.
Yeah, especially. Yeah, go ahead. The
Sorry,
legal one's especially dangerous because
Mhm.
you're a junior person and you're doing legal research that a senior person's going to use. It better
Yeah.
be right when you turn it in.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
yeah, I don't know how AI can do that for you
Yeah.
if you have a
The
big
thing
legal
is,
case. But
the thing is that tools like that can provide you with a lot of information. Um, and that's great. I mean, it's wonderful to say, okay, well, I've got an AI tool that can read through, several thousand pages of documents and give me an overall picture of what those thousands of pages of documents are like, because it's going to take me days, if not weeks, to do that. But you know, it becomes a question of, okay, do I have the intelligence to say the information that it gave me makes sense and I can run with it, or do I have the intelligence to say, you know what, this is uh, I got to go back to some of these things and check out the salient points instead of going through the thousands of pages of documents. Yeah. Kind of my take on it.
absolutely.
I was in an interesting, it was a seminar, webinar, sales promo thing over the weekend. Actually, it was Saturday, Sunday, and it's actually on today. And they were talking, it's all about becoming an AI generalist, which is the new role, which is the people who can use all of these AI tools, bring them together and do the job. And the guys that were doing this were saying, look, you know, I've spent the time to learn how to put this all together and work with this. It's like me having a team of 6, 12, 18 junior people working for me, working with me to produce the kind of information that I could never produce, by myself. And that even with those 12, 18 people working for me, it would take them days, if not weeks, to produce this information, but I can get it in a matter of minutes. It's pretty scary, actually.
Yeah, I would say if you get good at it, you really can. It can be like having a group of assistants. Like they say, hey, it's your AI assistant. Um, and actually, with Copilot, that's how they market it. It's an AI assistant, and it could be multiple assistants. Um, if you really get good at using it, it could, and depending on what the application is, it could do the work of several people.
Yeah.
Uh, Hey, let me ask this. Does anybody run into cases where, she talks about a little bit, hey, you can use the AI, but sometimes it's quicker not to use the AI. And I have an example of that if nobody else does, that I could discuss, or if someone else wants to talk about it, um, go ahead. I'll tell you the example that I ran into recently. So I was going to use AI to help do a presentation on data pipelines. So, I put notes, I had working with another person on it. So this other person and I, we put our notes together, and we had our outline, and we're like, okay, let's use AI to build our PowerPoint and see, how it would do. So we did. We had it since, create all the stuff, and it looked pretty slick, but the data points, or I should say the talking points, weren't exactly what we wanted. It didn't flow exactly like we wanted. And we made a decision of, hey, you know what? It'd be quicker. This was cool. It was a nice exercise to see this, but it'd be quicker. By the time we change it all, we could have just wrote it from scratch. So has anybody run into any situations like that?
I did this past week. I was trying to do a PowerPoint, and I just needed a simple one page, one slide PowerPoint with some bullets. I was trying to compare two sets of requirements, and I found it more cumbersome to go through the AI piece of it than it was just do it myself. So I scratched it and went back and did it myself. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what Yulia is saying
Yeah.
is sometimes
Mm-hmm.
it makes sense just to do that. By the time you
Right.
refine what you got, you could have just done it. Her wagon analogy was good. If I have three assistants that I have to help me fix this wagon, or if I have an assistant to help me fix this wagon, it'll take me 3 days. If I just do it, it's going to take me one day. This was a similar thing. So something to think about. Sometimes you'll run into that. You might kind of, become kind of reliant on the AI and be like, you know what? I'm just going
Yeah.
to take what it gives me,
Right.
more often than not. But
I
maybe
think it's
be
gonna
critical.
everybody's so gung ho about using AI that sometimes we go around our elbow just to use it, and that goes back to where, okay, as a human being, use your skills and make good decisions about when to use it versus not. Yeah.
This thing that I've found is that it it kind of distracts me. I can do something and I could say, okay, I can put this document together or I could put this presentation together. And then I say, okay, well, let me punch this through an AI tool and ask them for some help on it. And I get drawn off in a completely different direction, which makes sense. But if I were doing it myself, I would never do that. And I'm like, oh God, I wish I hadn't asked that question.
Yeah, it's good and bad. It's a double-edged sword for sure, because it can point out things that you hadn't thought of. Just like if you're bouncing ideas off somebody, versus I'm just coming up with them myself. You're going to come up with better, more ideas. You may not want to pursue them, but it'll think of things you didn't think of, just like bouncing ideas off of another person. They can think
Funny
of
that
things
you
you didn't
say
think
that.
of.
Is one of the things that I used to say back in the day when I was, working full time and doing development work and doing BA work. I always used to say, it's really hard to brainstorm with yourself.
Yeah,
And
now you
now I've got a
can.
tool that I can brainstorm with.
Yep, and it never gets tired.
Yeah, and it just keeps coming up with ideas. And it
Uh-huh.
just is like, oh yeah, okay. Um, but yeah, that exact phrase came to me the other day, brainstorming with yourself. And I thought, yeah, now I can do that.
Let's see. Does anybody else have any nuggets or anything that they got from this that they'd like to discuss? if not, I'll kind of bring us to a close. Now, one thing that she did talk about, Yulia talked about a little bit, was setting up your prompts and setting up your conversations, and saving that information so you can doing those conversations. Next week, we're going to be talking about something along those lines, and it has to do with creating AI agents. So next week, I'm going to do a demonstration of creating AI agents, and we're going to talk about what you can do with agents and how they can kind of help you in that scenario that kind of she's talking about is, hey, I've got this conversation or this persona kind of set up for my conversation with AI. It took me a lot of time to do that. I want to keep it and I want to have it for the future. Agents can help you do that. So we're going to talk about that next week. So does anyone have anything else? If not, I guess
Looking forward to next week.
Well, sounds good. And I guess I can cut you all loose. Do we have any closing comments from the meeting host or anything like that? If not, we can let everybody go.
Fun series. I won't be here next week, so I'm looking forward to the recording.
Okay, we'll have recording for you. All right. Well, with that, everybody, thanks for if you're somewhere where it's lunchtime, like it is for me, enjoy your lunch, and we hope to see you next week. Bye now.
Thanks.
Bye.